From a judge chasing inmates who ran from the courtroom to this emotional moment that left the judge in tears, these are the most viewed courtroom moments of all time. This is Jeremy Christian, the man who looked his victim in the eye and told her he should have killed her.
I should have killed you! I should have killed her!
Do you find that disturbing? Jeremy's crimes and the manner he committed them are much worse. Back in 2017, while Jeremy was sitting aboard a light rail train, drinking from the spigot of a plastic bladder of boxed sangria, he suddenly started to misbehave. He ranted about Jews and Muslims, beheadings in Saudi Arabia, and Vikings and circumcision. All of these he directed at two black teenage girls, one of whom was wearing a hijab. Passengers yelled back at him to caution him, but Jeremy was not having it. Soon, the issue escalated as three of the passengers stood in between the girls and Jeremy to prevent further abuse from him. Jeremy stood up, and within 12 seconds, he had sliced the necks of three men. One of these men escaped, while two others died from the injuries. Jeremy then left the train hurriedly like nothing happened. Soon after the attacks, Jeremy was arrested and put behind bars. That was the moment officers realized that someone had initially called 911 to report the same person about 17 hours before the train attacks. Jeremy had attacked Demetria Hester before he boarded the train the previous day, and during his trial, while Hester was called to give her speech in court, Jeremy yelled at her and said he regretted sparing her.
I should have killed you! I should have killed her!
The jury eventually found him guilty of 12 charges, and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. While you may never want to see this courtroom moment again, this next one is a moment you definitely want to see over and over again. It is about Tanner Jacobson and Cody Howard, the two young men who dared to run out of the courtroom.
Seeing something he'd never seen before, the judge made a split decision.
It was just a reaction. It was just my immediate.
Haul up. Let's go back a little to how it all started. You may be thinking that these two were trying to avoid life in jail or maybe execution, but no. They were in court facing just 30 days for driving on a suspended license. So what exactly made them run? According to reports, both Tanner and Cody are heroin addicts who were arrested a day before the courtroom moment. This means that both men have not had the chance to take heroin for hours, and they most likely would be feeling the early pain of withdrawal. To avoid this pain for the next 30 days, Cody had a crazy idea right in the courtroom. On seeing that there were deputies around, he told Tanner he was going to run. And did he?
Seeing something he'd never seen before, the judge made a split decision.
It was just a reaction. It was just my immediate.
As soon as Tanner followed Cody, someone else followed.
Gotta get these guys.
Bolting out of the courtroom, he gave chase, not knowing if he'd catch up.
I just wanted to at least.
Yes, Judge Buzzard lowered his gavel and gave chase. It's surprising how Tanner, who followed Cody, ran faster than him, but as soon as Cody fell, we understood why.
In custody calendar, a couple individuals getting ready to be let out of the courtroom by transport staff, and
it was all because Cody was wearing oversized shower sandals while he was handcuffed. However, he picked himself up and continued to run, but Judge Buzzard won't back down either. As they ran through the stairs, he followed. While Tanner made it out of the exit, Judge Buzzard was able to grab Cody by the collar and take him back to the courtroom. However, Tanner couldn't go too far either. He was caught 4 blocks away and brought back to the courtroom. When they were questioned why they decided to run, they had this to say.
It was just a split-second, decision. I don't even know why I did it. I would be out of here if I wouldn't have ran.
I didn't try to escape to get out. I tried to escape to get well, and I tried to do what I could, do what I could do to get my drug addiction.
Eventually, what was supposed to be only a month of jail punishment turned to Cody receiving 6 years in prison, while Tanner was given 1.5 years. Did this courtroom moment make you laugh? This next one may make you shed a tear or two. This is Trey Relford. Trey Relford. Getting a hug from a man in the courtroom? Nope. This is not a father and son moment. It is a victim's father hugging his son's killer. Back in 2015, Trey Relford and 2 other men committed a robbery that was orchestrated by Relford. They called pizza delivery restaurants and stalked the drivers before deciding to target Salah Houdin Jitmood for robbery. Relford had downloaded an app so his cell phone number couldn't be identified. On April 19, 2015, in Lexington, Kentucky, 22-year-old Salah Houdin was robbed and killed by Relford. Trey Relford was facing a death sentence after he pleaded guilty to the murder charge, but that was before Salah Houdin's father gave his emotional speech in the courtroom. Abdul Munim Sombat Jitmood is a retired principal who was in charge of 7 Islamic schools in the U.S. for 31 years. He regularly speaks at programs promoting attributes associated with mercy. And that day in the courtroom, he demonstrated what he preaches. As he rose to give his speech, even though people knew who he was and what he preached, no one expected what came out of Jitmood's mouth.
Trey Alexander Relford, I feel so sad for you that you have to be in this situation. I wish I could help you, as I help my son to be a good citizen. If Salah Houdin were to be here, if he alive, he will forgive you. That's the way he was. That's the way he is. I'm not angry at you for being part of hurting my son. I'm angry at the devil. I blame the devil who misguiding you and misleading you to do such a horrible crime. No, I don't blame you. I'm not angry at you at all. I want you to know that. I forgive you on behalf of Salah Houdin and his mother.
Jitmood said he forgave Relford because that was what Salah Houdin would have wanted if he was alive. His speech didn't leave a single dry eye in the courtroom. Even the judge shed a tear. After his speech, the judge gave Relford a chance to speak as well.
I'm sorry about what happened today. But I do applaud you, because it takes a powerful man to know that somebody has hurt them and do what you, get up there and say what you just said. I have a child. She is 4. And I can imagine the hurt, the pain from what you learned. Just tell us what I can do. So when I thank you for your forgiveness.
And as if these speeches were not touching enough, Jitmood took this emotional moment a step further. One moment, please. Let's go grab the tissue box. This is probably the most emotional courtroom moment of all time, because who would have imagined a victim's parent would be at peace with the one who took the life of their child? After the whole mushy moment, Relford was sentenced to 31 years in prison instead of death. Next is the courtroom moment involving Michael Swanson, the laughing killer.
You lacked the capacity, that you were insane. And I don't buy into that. You are dangerous.
Don't you also think Swanson is insane? No one knew what was on his mind until he rose one day and drove on his mother's Jeep to meet his friend Danny Chelga at a park. The two talked and smoked cigarettes for a while, and soon Swanson showed Chelga the gun he stole from his grandfather's cabin and told him it was likely the last time they'd see each other. He had violated probation for stealing ramen noodles from Cub Foods, and he wasn't going back to jail. Instead, he was heading for Amsterdam or Mexico. Segla urged his friend to check in at a hospital to get some help, but Swanson refused and said goodbye with an ominous prediction, "You'll see me on the news." On November 15, 2011, Swanson walked into the Crossroads gas station in Algona just after 9 p.m. and shot 47-year-old Vicky Bowman Hall, an attendant at the station.
I want to know if you're even sorry. Are you sorry for what you did? My mom was not only completely 100% innocent, but she was also a defenseless woman when you came in with that gun.
After that, he drove to Humboldt, about 30 miles south of Algona, where he shot and killed 61-year-old Sheila Myers. He had asked Myers for cigarettes and cash, and she complied by giving all to him, but still Swanson shot her point blank. Swanson was arrested, and while he was being escorted to trial, he kept smiling as he said to the reporters, "You're all funny." In the courtroom, while Myers's daughter was delivering an emotional speech, Swanson just sat there showing no emotions at all. Right, Swanson only shot his victims for the pleasure of it. According to him, what he did made him feel powerful. But as if that was not enough, while the judge was reading to him his life in prison sentence, Swanson was there laughing. While Swanson laughed at his sentence, this next inmate did the opposite. This is Ryan Stone.
A high-speed chase through 5 Metro Denver counties. At times, cars were ditched and drivers thrown out the door. At one point, a 4-month-old boy was strapped in a back seat.
Would you be surprised to learn that the same Ryan Stone has been laughing and joking around since his arrest?
My lawyer told me I made the news in the UK and Australia.
Well, his expression only changed when he learned he would be spending the rest of his life in jail. Ryan Stone was arrested for a crime spree he committed in 2014. He took the cops on a chase that covered 75 miles, committing crimes upon crimes. The chase started when Stone stole a car that had a child sitting in the back seat. The pursuit, which crossed over 5 different counties and covered 75 miles, started in Longmont and finally ended in Lone Tree, where Stone was taken into custody. It continued for over 1.5 hours, and the speed exceeded 100 miles per hour. During the pursuit, he carjacked several drivers along the way, and at a point, he almost killed a trooper, Bellaman He, as he was trying to place stop sticks on E470 to halt the chase. Fortunately, he was only left with several broken bones. Stone's chase didn't last forever. After he carjacked another driver, the cops caught up with him, leading to the crash of his car. Stone got out of the car and ended the chase on foot. Eventually, the cops got him and arrested him. He was held for attempted manslaughter and dozens of other charges. But during his sentencing statements, prosecutors surprised many people in the court by airing recordings they gathered of calls Stone made from jail to friends and family. You can see Stone laughing about the chase he led police on, gloats about the worldwide attention it received, even using profanity describing He, saying he was dumb for not getting out of the road when he struck him. In one recording, Stone's mother is also heard referring to the judge as biased. Probably Stone thought he wouldn't receive a long sentence for carjacking, or maybe he didn't know the gravity of his offense. It was only when he learned that he would be spending 160 years in jail with parole eligibility in approximately 75 years that he became remorseful. When it was his turn to speak during his sentencing, Stone tried to explain some of those recordings, saying he regretted making some and that he hoped for forgiveness.
Give me time to start a family of my own with my beautiful wife.
This is Susan Melon, the woman who spent 17 years in jail for a crime she didn't commit. On August 25, 1997, Susan was out with her daughter, 9-year-old Jessica, to buy her a Happy Meal at McDonald's. But there in the parking lot, she was thrown to the ground and arrested for the murder of Rick Daly, her ex-boyfriend. Susan and Rick only dated briefly after her marriage with the father of her 2 kids didn't work out. And after she broke up with Rick, she met Tom, who cared for her and her 2 children. Soon, all 3 moved in with Tom in his house where they lived in harmony. On the evening of July 21, 1997, while Susan was with her daughter all day several miles away, 3 male Lawndale gang members were present in an abandoned house when one or more of them savagely attacked Rick Daly. After his death, police started an investigation and claimed an informant mentioned Susan Melon as the culprit. Susan was taken in for questioning in August of the same year, and even though she kept saying she was innocent, the police won't believe her. After a while, the police in charge even tried to get a false confession from her. Despite her repeated protestations of innocence and denial of a polygraph test, Susan was convicted of murder in 1998. After Susan's conviction by a jury, she was sentenced to life in prison, and there she remained for 17 years. In 2013, evidence was discovered that the prosecution's informant was a pathological liar. The Los Angeles County DA's office participated in the reinvestigation of the case. And on September 18, 2014, Susan Melon filed a writ of habeas corpus. Based on the new evidence, her conviction was based on unreliable witness evidence, which was granted on October 10, 2014, without opposition by the DA's office. This moment is a moment of joy for Susan and her family, but the story didn't end there. On April 23, 2015, Susan filed a federal civil rights lawsuit that named the Los Angeles Police Department, a LAPD detective, and his supervisor as defendants. On June 8, 2015, the California legislature passed authorization for Melon to be paid $597,200 under California's wrongful conviction compensation statute. Next is Ortiz Nez. On June 13, 2017, Kent County deputies were called to a Gaines Township house trailer where Ortiz Nez was left to care for several children under the age of 11. When the police arrived, they found a 4-year-old boy lying lifelessly in the kitchen of his home. According to Ellis Ortiz, he was at home with 7 children that day. 3 were his, 3 were his girlfriend, including Giovanni Mejias, found dead in the kitchen, and the remaining one was his niece. Ortiz claimed when he woke up, he found Giovanni Mejias on the kitchen floor, not breathing with serious stomach bloating. He then claimed he ordered one of the other children to call 911 as he performed CPR on Mejias. But the autopsy result says otherwise. It showed that the boy had died from internal bleeding caused by an abdominal tear. According to experts, that type of injury wouldn't have been caused by a child, but an adult. And the only adult around at the time was Ortiz Nez. There were several brutal injuries found on the boy which could have resulted in his death. In summary, all evidence points to Ortiz as Giovanni's killer. But surprisingly, Hernandez, Giovanni's murderer, took Ortiz's side when she was asked to testify in court. She claimed that Ortiz had a good heart and loved children. She also said Ortiz would never do that to her child, as Giovanni Mejias loved Ortiz and wanted to be just like him. If you're wondering why she was not even considering Ortiz as the killer, it's probably because they both were Giovanni's abusers. However, after the children testified on trial that both Elise Ortiz and their mother would kick, beat, and whip them, it was clear that Hernandez was involved in her children's abuse. The poor boy was murdered when he was almost 5 years old, leading the family to take birthday balloons to his grave. On the sentencing day, while the courtroom was full of emotions, the Kent County Circuit Court Judge Mark Trusock called Ortiz a monster and evil. He further said that what Ortiz did was disgusting and sickening and that he should never be allowed out of prison. Those words got to Ortiz and he became really aggressive and struggled with the deputies.
Anybody says anything back there?
He had to be forcefully removed from the court for becoming upset, and after 10 minutes he was returned. Eventually, Trusock sentenced him to mandatory life in prison without the possibility of parole for felony murder. He was also sentenced to between 80 and 100 years for first-degree child abuse. Now, it's time for today's subscriber pick. These 3 inmates are Tatiana Fusari, Jeremy Christian, and Bass Webb from right to left. They have committed heinous crimes that got the whole country talking. However, their crimes are not as famous as their courtroom videos, making them an important part of the list of most viewed courtroom moments of all time. While you already know about Jeremy's violent nature through his courtroom footage, you're about to find out why Tatiana Fusari is in tears and why Bass Webb is wearing a mask. Let's start with Tatiana Fusari.
It requires a DNA sample to be taken upon arrest, which is often like a copy.
So many questions, right? Why is Tatiana crying and who is the shocked man sitting next to her? Well, the man is Seth Welch, Tatiana's husband. The two are blessed with 3 children, including Mary Welch, their last child. On August 2, 2018, Seth Welch called 911 to report that his baby was unresponsive. In his call, he mentioned that he already called his parents, who are his lawyers, to ask them how to proceed. The 911 responder asked if he thought the child was beyond help, since he called his lawyers first. Seth answered her by saying,
When you found her, she was already believed to be deceased, right? Yes. And that's when you consulted with a lawyer? Yep. Do you believe she was beyond help already? Oh, yeah. She was dead as a doormat.
After Mary's body was examined, it was discovered that she had not been given proper care. She had died of starvation and dehydration. Results showed that Mary had not eaten food for days while Tatiana claimed she had been feeding her. When they were asked why they didn't get help when the girl's condition worsened, they said their religion was against using medical help. Police found scriptures and religious texts everywhere in the home, but they didn't find the other 2 children malnourished. As soon as Tatiana sensed trouble, she claimed that her husband was abusive, and that was why she was too scared to go against him by seeking medical help for their child. Eventually, the jury found them guilty of abuse and neglect. The couple was initially charged with felony murder in August 2018, but you see, this video of their reaction is what made the case go viral. You must be wondering what Seth expected, right? Well, we have so many questions to ask. In June 2020, he was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Tatiana was also sentenced to life without the possibility of parole for first-degree murder and an additional 15 to 30 years on the charge of first-degree child abuse. Now let's find out why this next inmate was wearing a mask. This is Webb. In case you missed that, watch it again. Yes, he spat on the judge's face. That explains why he had to show up in court with a spit mask. But for what reason? You see, Bass has a long list of crimes that started with an assault. The assault got him in jail for 3 months, and after he was out, he decided to punish jail officers by running them over with his car. One of the officers escaped while the other was badly injured. He was being tried for that case when he spat on the judge's face. The judge then ordered that he be charged immediately for his crimes. After he was sentenced to 37 years in prison, a few weeks later, he and 4 other inmates started a riot in jail. But little did he know that bigger problems were coming his way. He was soon accused of murder in the death of Sabrina Marie Vaughn in Montgomery County, whose skeletal remains were found in January 2010, 7 years after she had gone missing. His ex-girlfriend was also found dead in her home in Harrison County back in 2019, and Webb was accused of the same. He pleaded guilty to his ex-girlfriend's murder and was also found guilty of Sabrina's murder. If anything, Webb is going to spend the rest of his life in jail, because how do you spit on someone who has the power to decide if you're going to be free or rot in jail? But while Webb shocked the judge, this next inmate confused the judge. This is Diana Lovejoy, the woman who conspired with her ex-boyfriend to murder her husband. It all started with a divorce case. Lovejoy and her ex-husband, Greg Mulvihill, were locked in a custody battle, and Lovejoy became so determined to win sole custody. She then paid former Marine Weldon McDavid, with whom she had previously had a relationship, $2,000 to shoot her ex-husband. This would guarantee her sole custody, at least in theory. Despite succeeding in shooting Mulvihill, fortunately, the 47-year-old survived the attack. After a criminal trial, the jury read out the verdict: guilty. Video footage, captured inside the courtroom, shows the exact moment of the verdict on the charges of attempted murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Lovejoy looks gaunt as she sits next to her attorney, staring blankly ahead and hunching over. The camera pans over to her attorney, and at the moment the word guilty rings out, she does the unexpected.
Case number SCN 363925, DA number OCD 980. Verdict. We, the jury, in the above entitled cause, find the defendant, Weldon K. McDavid, guilty of the crime of conspiracy to commit murder.
Alright, we're going to need to take a break. And if we could also get up as you request.
Court officers rushed over and managed to lay the unconscious criminal on the floor. She was then rushed to hospital, where it was confirmed that she had only fainted. When she regained consciousness, Age was sentenced to 26 years in prison, while McDavid was jailed for 50 years as he had been the one who pulled the trigger. Diana Lovejoy didn't have the chance to say anything, but this next criminal chose his sentence. Christopher McNab. Though this story centers around him, he isn't alone. He and his partner, Courtney Marie Bell, raised an alarm about their missing 15-day-old child, Kalia, back in 2017. They told the police that while they slept, Kalia was abducted. McNab even went as far as to plead on the TV that anyone who knows his child's whereabouts should come forward, unknown to people who left their homes to search for the child that he and his partner had killed. Young Kalia's body was later discovered in a Nike backpack in October 2017, which the pair claimed had also been stolen. The autopsy showed that the child was severely beaten to her death. According to the investigation, the couple were under the influence of crystal meth at the time of the horrific attack. Courtney was handed a sentence of 30 years, the first 15 of which she would serve in confinement. But McNab maintained his innocence before the judge, as he said, "I would never do this. I'm innocent." The judge then asked him a question unknown to him that he was deciding his fate.
Since I'm pretty sure by the law states that I have a right to confront my witnesses who accuse me of doing wrong, so I felt like I wanted to say it in front of her since she was the one up here slandering me. And that's all I got.
Last on the list is Daniel Nicholson. He was only in court on September 15, 2020, in relation to charges of carrying an offensive weapon and possessing a prohibited weapon. He had not even been sentenced when he decided he had to do the impossible. Right in the presence of police officers, Nicholson tried to escape, and it was chaotic. Video Nicholson jumped out of the dock on his second attempt and landed on the bar table. Police prosecutor Brendan Gottschutski quickly grabs the defendant and pins him to the ground, but Nicholson manages to break free from his hold. As a result of the incident, one sheriff's officer sustained a broken right foot and needed to wear a moon boot for 6 weeks. The court was told Nicholson was high on methamphetamine at the time of his attempted escape. Nicholson said he freaked out when he was told his bail was revoked because he thought he was just appearing in court that day and would have gone home with his son. He also accepted that his reaction was stupid and he didn't mean to hurt anyone. But the judge said the outburst was inexcusable, and so he was handed a 1-year, 9-month, and 18-day prison sentence with a non-parole period of 1 year. If he didn't do that, his sentence probably would have been lesser. Now, he won't be able to go home for a year. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.